Good evening. The police in London are engaged in what could be Britain's biggest mass murder investigation involving up to 16 deaths. 3 dismembered bodies have been found beneath a house at Cranley Gardens in Muswell Hill, North London, and police are now searching a house in Melrose Avenue in Cricklewood, where it's believed traces of another 13 bodies may be found. The 3 dismembered...
ASMR.
I think on my last one we were just cracking cans down the thing. Yeah.
What was your last one on?
I spoke to Bill Kimberlin. You know did you listen to it? The guy from America.
Mm-mm.
So he's...
Oh, sorry, I should be like, yeah, of course I did. Damn, I
He's a death row expert.
Oh, you told me about it, actually.
Yeah.
He's been into a lot of the prisons, hasn't he?
He's seen executions and stuff,
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
God, that must be quite sobering, actually.
Well, he wants to. He's up for doing another one as well with me.
Fab.
But I was on Zoom to him. I got the whole thing. It's on YouTube, actually, me and him talking via Zoom.
Mm.
But yeah, for maybe 20 years, he's worked his way into death row to research it for book. He's written 2 books. I've read one of them. They're quite small, easy reading books.
Yeah.
I'll lend you the one. And he told me his process. So he wanted to get into death row to interview inmates and see what it's like, and just find out, the psychology, because he's a psychologist as well. He wants to talk about, why they did the things they did. And he said it took him years to be able to get into death row to talk to them, and before that it was just a pen pal. So he got to know these people, and since then he talks to multiple people all the time, and he gets sent artwork from them.
Mm.
And he's got the largest death row art collection in the world. He's got over 3,000 pieces of art.
Wow.
And some of them have got like blood and sperm and stuff in the artwork. And
Yeah.
they're all gruesome.
I suppose you're limited on the supplies that you get in prison, though.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the last one we did. And he's still got scheduled executions to go and see.
So he flies out, or does he live over there?
He lives in America. I think he lives
Yeah.
in Florida. But yeah, he does drive like 4 or 5 hours to some of them.
Yeah. I think, though, does he still have people, does he speak to people that still protest their innocence?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, some of them are actually weirdly nice people.
Yeah.
And some of them are full-blown, like you think, psychopaths and just...
I think, though, that probably goes with the serial killer kind of persona or whatnot. I think, I suppose we'll touch on it a bit later with Dennis, but they're probably only... people can live normal lives and actually be genuinely nice. Well, not genuinely nice, obviously the serial killers, but genuinely nice people, or live a day-to-day life of, normal job, pets, families, this, that, the other, and maybe just turn on that instinct, and when they're doing the murderous act, and that's when they become the person that they are, and the serial killer. But then, bury the body, do whatever they do, and then crack on the next day and go to work and just be that normal Tom.
And that's the thing, what they say, like Ted Bundy. He was, what was that?
Shock, so it's just shotguns going around.
All the Wem gangs.
Oh, yeah. No, to be fair, it did sound like bomb explosions earlier on. I did wonder what was going on. There is an Army Cadets place around the corner, though.
Oh, right. Yeah, get nice some ambience. Like with Ted Bundy, I always refer back to him because he's a classic case of the boy next door. He was a really lovely bloke. Like, he studied law. In uni, he was part of a committee club type thing where he was helping women to handing out pamphlets of karate lessons, self-defense lessons, and anti-rape things. That was Ted Bundy. So people are obviously like, oh, he's a great upstanding citizen, and he's one of the most notorious, infamous serial killers
suppose
ever.
to kind of get away with it and go under the radar, you have to blend in.
Yeah, exactly.
If like now, I suppose our day and age, children, social media, etc. But when we grew up, we didn't have social media. I don't know about you, but my grandparents were like, oh, you get nasty men, horrible men, don't go ever, don't do this, don't do that, don't get into anybody's car that's trying to sell you puppies, all that kind of stuff. And I suppose your typical stereotypical person of even a nonce or whatever walking down the street, you'd be like, oh god, they look like a bit of a nonce, but actually it's the guy behind him in the chinos and his Doc Martens with the shades on that looks totally normal with his kids and his wife. He's actually the nonce, not the Pope.
Exactly. It's very strange. And so again, Ted Bundy, it fascinates me because you look at his childhood. And he had a pretty decent, normal childhood. Nothing really happened to him. So for me, he stands out a little bit. Because a lot of them, have horrific childhoods.
Yeah, abuse.
And you can understand why, you know, the abused become the abuser and all that sort of thing.
It's
and
like the Menendez brothers, you know, kind of, if they, you know, if what they say is true about the reason they did what they did to the parents, which they never denied doing, you can kind of understand why. You know, they both got abused by the father. The eldest one was, you know, tried to be the protector of the brother. He got it for so long. You know, you can see maybe why they did what they did, but it's those that maybe don't come from that. But it's just, you know, do
you think they were abused?
I believe, I do. I believe it. I think the lifestyle that they, you know, I think again as well, money and power, it goes to people's heads. And I think, you know, they was very rich. I'm not saying they was, you know, famous or whatnot at the time, but, you know, I believe they were very rich, and, you know, they had all this influence on maybe the people around them. I do think they was abused. I do believe, and I am a sucker for a sob story. Don't get me wrong. You know, watch X Factor, used to cry. I am a sucker for a sob story. I did. Cry. Phil Mitchell cries. I cry.
My mum died 15 years ago. Can I win X Factor, please? Go on then.
My cat's got cancer. Help me. Yeah, exactly. I am a sucker for a sob story, but no, I do believe it. I do believe there was abused. I think
the series helped.
The drama series definitely helped, and then obviously they brought out the documentary, didn't they? Which shortly followed, I think, on Netflix, or was out around the same time. I think there's people now that are very influential people in the world, like the Kardashians, for example. You know, hey, huge fan, hey Kim.
Yeah. She's listening.
Obs. That knew them, you know. I know that Rob Kardashian, as in senior, who's dead, used to play tennis with the eldest Menendez brothers.
Oh yeah, because he was in the entertainment industry. The dad, wasn't he, Jose?
Well, I think he was, he boy bands and stuff, and tried to be some kind of producer, didn't he? Or so says the drama series that I watched. Not like I was there, but So I think, I don't know. I do believe it. And I think. Again, we'll touch on it, I suppose, later. Nature versus.
But you see that they've got the.
I mean, they're getting resentenced, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like next month, I think.
But no, I think that's the popularity of, that's, you know, again, the media and social media and the influencers now. There's probably been a lot of protests. I mean, I know, again, I'm going to touch on it because I can't not be. Like Kim Kardashian, she's done the bar. She is, you know, she's studied law. She is a lawyer, so she does get people out of prison that she thinks have been wrongly accused. An innocent project
thing she's doing.
Yeah, people that she thinks have been wrongly accused. Now, a lot of the women that she's got out will be first-time offenders, for example, because in the States, I think it's massively different in relation to the reasons you get sent to prison. So a few of the people she's got out have been people, first-time offenders, that have maybe boyfriends, oh, can you take this here, or go and drop that off there. They know what they're doing. I'm not saying they don't know that they've got drugs in the backpack or whatnot, and then they get caught doing it. So they're the ones that then go to prison. So, you know, a lot of the things she does, I mean, not just for women, she does it for a lot of guys, and, you know, it could be they've all been caught up in gangs. And again, I don't excuse anything, but I think the laws and the sentences over in America especially are a lot more strict.
Yeah, they're harsh, aren't they?
Yeah, they're very, absolutely. So you know, I think,
and people make mistakes.
People do make mistakes, and people change and grow. You know, I met my husband when I was 17, and now we're 35, and we've massively grown over that time. Even just in general day-to-day life, doesn't mean we've not made mistakes. And we you know, we all grow as people. And my 17-year-old self, if I look back at them now, I think, what a knob.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You know, like we all change, we all grow up.
Right. So what are we talking about today?
We are talking today about Dennis Andrew Nilsen.
Oh dear. So I consider him kind of, which I remember. I think he hated this. He actually. Was referred to the British Jeffrey Dahmer, because it's pretty similar, isn't it? He was homosexual, he killed men, and he did weird things, and he hated that. And I thought, well, that's pretty spot on, right?
Yeah.
Didn't like to be. He's his own person. He wants to be in control. That's the thing. Right. So we're going to get into it. We got our notes here. So Dennis Andrew Nilsen was a Scottish serial killer and necrophile who murdered at least 12 young men and boys between 1978 and 1983. And we're going to start with his childhood. I don't know if you want to start this off, Steph, and read a bit, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I can do. I mean, I've read all this. I think his childhood, you know, he was born in, as you say, 1945, so that's the end of World War II. Life was obviously massively differently back then. He had his mother, Elizabeth, and his dad, Olav, who I believe was also in the army. Didn't really know his dad much.
What was it say? Olav Magnus Moksheim, who had adopted the surname Nilsen.
Yeah.
So his dad was Don't know where
So his dad was a Norwegian soldier.
It says here.
Yeah. And he travelled to Scotland, didn't he, in the forces following the German occupation of Norway. So after a brief courtship with Elizabeth, they married really early on and then moved into her parents' house. Right. So I believe that her parents didn't actually approve of the marriage, but I don't believe it lasted long. They divorced quite quick. Being in the army, I think he was in and out quite a lot, and I don't think, he didn't really know his children. I think they made the children, shall we say, when he just came back on visits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wham bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, absolutely, and they divorced really quickly.
So, the couple divorced 1948, so that was what?
3 years after Dennis was born.
Yeah. Were supportive of their daughter following the divorce and considerate of their grandchildren. So it seems like they didn't like the dad.
No, I don't.
And they were glad to get rid of him.
Yeah, I don't think Dennis's grandparents approved of his father.
Another plane going over.
Another plane.
Talking about World War II. Don't have to add some effects in now, do I? Nilsen was a quiet yet adventurous child. His earliest memories were of family picnics in the Scottish countryside with his mother and siblings, of his grandparents' pious lifestyle, which he just later described as cold and dour, and of being taken on long countryside walks carried on the shoulders of his maternal grandfather, to whom he was particularly close. Olav Jr. and Sylvia occasionally accompanied Dennis and his grandfather on these walks. Despite only being 5 years old, Nilsen vividly recalled these walks as being very long, along the harbour, across the wide stretch of beach up to the sand dunes, which rise 30 feet behind the beach, and onto, where's that, Inverlochie. He later described this stage of his childhood as one of contentment, and his grandfather being his great hero and protector. Obviously didn't have a dad, did he?
No.
Adding that whenever his grandfather, who was a fisherman, was at sea, life would be empty for me until he returned. So he relied on his grandfather.
He did, and I think his grandfather became his father figure. He probably is disciplinary, the male role model in his life.
The only one.
Yeah.
So by 1951, Nilsen's grandfather's health was in decline, but he continued to work. 31st of October 1951, whilst fishing in the North Sea, he died of a heart attack at the age of 62. His body was brought ashore and returned to the White family home prior to the burial. In what Nilsen later described as his most vivid childhood recollection, his mother, weeping, asked him whether he wanted to see his grandfather. When he replied that he did, he was taken into the room where his grandfather lay in an open coffin. As Nilsen gazed upon the body, his mother told him his grandfather was sleeping, adding to that he had gone to a better place. Yeah,
so I've, obviously on some of the documentaries and some of the other things that you actually read, from what's out there, it seemed like he didn't actually know, or he hadn't been prepared for the fact that his grandfather had died.
Because they said he was sleeping, so it's confusing for a kid.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and I think he was expecting this loving father figure to be sat there, come back from sea, which I imagined he'd done loads of times. Let's get ready to go out for a walk, and walked into the kitchen with the coffin on it to find it to see his grandpa dead,
and it was a sudden death casket, as well.
Yeah. So that for a 6-year-old boy, I mean, that must be just so traumatic.
Yeah, just getting used to having him around, and then he suddenly dies, and he was only 62.
Yeah.
No, he could have had 20 years left.
Well, I mean, 62 back in the day though might have been old.
Yeah, true. Grafter.
But no, I think that just in itself is quite traumatic. Your mother saying, "Do you want to see your grandfather?" and walking into the kitchen expecting him to be sat up ready to take you out for a walk, and he's in his coffin dead. Yeah. I mean, no wonder that's stayed with him.
Yeah, I think my granddad died last year, as you know, and I think my mum gave me the option to go and see him, and at first I thought I wanted to, kind of out of morbid curiosity, but also to see him for the last time.
Yeah.
But then when it came to it, I think I only had one chance, like one day. I think my uncle Gary went, and I think I just forgot. And then when I decided to make my decision and talk to my mum after, she said, "Oh, you can't anymore anyway." And I thought, actually, I'm glad I didn't.
I mean, it is quite traumatic. My great nan, how old's Grace now? Grace is 16, so she died when Grace was about 11 weeks old. And so what happened was my great nan got she had a stroke. She got quite ill in probably the last 10 years of her life. And my nan, who's alive now, and everyone knows I talk about my nan a lot, she would go every single day, Monday to Saturday. She'd have a Sunday off. And on the Saturday night, she spoke to her Wimbledon. Tennis had been on during the day. And on the Sunday, she couldn't get hold of her. So we only lived maybe a couple of minutes up the road. So she rang us on the Sundays, like, can't get hold of your nan, can't get hold of your nan. I'm coming down in a taxi. It's just not
So is
like
this
your
your
nan. This is my great nan.
nan?
Yeah,
Oh, so
so my dad's mum's mum.
Right, okay.
And James and I drove down. Obviously, we couldn't get in. She lived in these kind of what one would only describe as old lady apartments. So it was, they looked like terraced houses, one up, one down, and all
Like
the way down the road. I mean, not shelter, old people communities, yeah. So we couldn't get in, and then we waited for my nan to come. She opened the door, and you go upstairs, and she literally sat up dead in her clothes from the night before, watching the Wimbledon, where my nan had probably last seen her. So that was quite something. Finding your nan dead in the room and ringing for the ambulance, and your dad.
You were there?
I was there. Yeah, I found her first. I ran up the stairs. Obviously, my nan being my nan, took a little bit more. Took longer to get up the stairs. So discovering your nan dead, blue lips, ringing the ambulance.
And you'll never forget that.
And they're asking her, can you try and resuscitate her? No, love, she's cold. Like, no, she's got blue. She's got blue lips. There's blood coming out the side of her mouth. She's not coming back. And then ringing your dad because there's another plane.
It's the Germans.
Bloody Trump now. What's he doing? Getting more.
It's the Krauts. Get them.
And then ringing your dad. My dad lived in Shropshire at the time, and we was up in lovely Preston, up north. Ringing your dad, and you're trying to tell your dad on one phone on your mobile that your nan's died and you have to come, and then you're on the landline to the ambulance, and the way he hears it is by me telling the ambulance people. So that's something, I think, even just discovering a dead body, knowing that you potentially are going to go and discover a dead body, let alone saying, oh, do you want to go and see your nan? And then you're walking and she's dead, and you expect her to be sat there alive. At least I was. I think I was 19 at the time, so you kind of knew.
You were a little bit prepared.
You kind of knew that's what you were going in for. She was 89, she wasn't in any great health, but there was no imminent health risks going on at the time, other than, I suppose, old age.
How did she die?
Do you know what, Tim? I don't think I know. I think it was just, like I say, she was 89. She'd had numerous cancers. The most recent at the time had been breast cancer, which again was probably about 10 years earlier. She'd had a breast removed and whatnot. I think she was she'd had a stroke as well. There was lots of things in her kind of, I don't say early of adult life, but people get to 60, 70, they start getting the ailments and the illnesses. So yeah, she passed. Sleep, like I say, peacefully on all accounts.
Yeah,
sat up in her clothes watching Wimbledon. Andy Murray on the telly. She was Scottish. He was Scottish, so that was all good. And then again, my granddad, a couple of years later, he suffered very, very well. I'd say early. He was in his early 70s. He started getting dementia. I had Grace, and he thought Grace was me from when I was that age, which was it was nice because my granddad, on all accounts, and keep this bit in, he was a bit of a cunt, bit of a bastard back in the day. He was.
You can swear all you like.
Thank you. The C word does come out quite regularly.
You're northern. It's a natural
us northerns. He was a bit of a cunt. He was a womanizer. He had a lot of kids that weren't my nan's. He was physically abusive. He was this, that, and the other. And apparently, I came around, and wham bam, there we go, different man. Never known anybody love somebody as much as he loved me.
Yeah.
So then that was nice, seeing him act that way with Grace, even though he thought it was me.
Right.
Because she was such a baby and a little toddler. And then he got horrible dementia. We'd lost him years and years earlier. But the kind of dementia where he couldn't speak. So that was frustrating. And then it was almost like he wanted to constantly leave the house to get to his childhood home, and would be walking in the middle of the road and whatnot. So my nan had to lock the doors, and then he became incontinent. So he got put in a home, and when he was in the home, he had a fall or whatnot, goes to the hospital. And again, just going to the hospital, realising you haven't got there on time, then you walk in and he's dead in the bed. And seeing people in the coffins, it's not nice. By the time you get to the stage of you seeing somebody in the coffin, they're all swollen, and you bend down to give them a kiss in the freezing cold and the blue, and bless them, the undertakers have done what they can do. But
yeah, that's why I thought I'm glad I didn't go to see my granddad, because
it's not the last memory you want to have.
No,
like you say, something I'm never going to forget for either of those grandparents.
Exactly. And when he was dying, because it was like he just got old, as you know. And I think my mum had rang me and just said, like, because he was in palliative care. So it's end of life, like they're just numbing him with painkillers. So I went to go and see him, And yeah, walked in, burst out crying because he looked like he was from a concentration camp. He just looked really skinny. Still got his massive hands, like baseball mitts, like massive hands. And bless him, he was still he was in and out of consciousness. But when I walked in and stopped crying, my mum was like, "Oh, Tom's here." And he woke up and he's like, "Are you right, Tom?" Normally.
Yeah.
And held my hand, and he was squeezing it really tight, like really tight for how frail he was. And I was there maybe an hour, but as I was leaving, he was still holding it, and he was in and out of consciousness, and I had to go, and he was still pulling my hand. It was really sad. But in hindsight, I'm glad I saw him, because I think he died about a day or two later, and he had a good memory up until that point still. So I think he probably would have appreciated it and remembered it, which makes me feel better. Whereas my brother didn't go because he wanted to remember him as he was, as a normal, healthy person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So everyone acts differently, don't they?
They do.
So yeah, Nilsen saw his granddad in a coffin. His mum had told him that he was sleeping. 6 years. How old is he? 6.
6.
So
yeah.
it's confusing for him. So that's one thing that kind of sticks out for me. But anyway, so in the years following the death of his grandfather, Nilsen became more quiet and withdrawn, which is, it's a natural thing. Often standing alone at the harbour watching the herring boats. At home, he seldom participated in family activities and retreated from any attempts by adult family members to demonstrate any affection towards him. He grew to resent what he saw as the unfair amount of attention of his mother, grandmother, and later stepfather displayed towards his older brother and younger sister. He envied his brother's popularity, Olav Jr. He often talked to or played games with his younger sister Sylvia, to whom he was closer than any other family member following his grandfather's passing. So after his grandfather's died, he noticed his parents were paying more attention to his siblings. So that's another kick in the balls, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it says in the beginning of that, he became quiet and withdrawn because obviously probably the person he loved the most in the world died. So therefore, he probably didn't want to, or probably wasn't participating in the family life as much. So therefore, they probably stopped. As a parent, you wouldn't stop trying, but I suppose it probably got to a point where they knew he wasn't joining in. He didn't want the hugs. I think I've listened to that.
Yeah, and I suppose the extra attention in his head towards his siblings wasn't extra attention.
It was just normal attention.
What he was gonna get, but he didn't want it.
Absolutely.
But that's not also his fault, because of they probably didn't understand how traumatized he was by it.
Yeah.
Because to them it's like, oh, he's old, he's died, but to him it's like that's the only person that mattered to him.
Mm-hmm.
And as a young kid, that sinks in. They're sponges, aren't they? Their brains as children. So on one of his solo excursions to the beach in that place I can't pronounce, was in Verlochy, in 1954 and 1955, Nilsen became submerged beneath the water and was almost dragged out to sea. He initially panicked, flailing his arms and shouting. As he gasped for air, which wasn't there, in quotations, he recalled believing that his grandfather was about to arrive and pull him out before experiencing a sense of tranquility. His life was saved by another youth who dragged him out ashore. Shortly after this incident, his mother moved out of his grandparents' home and into a flat with her 3 children. She later married a builder named Andrew Scott, with whom she had 4 more children in as many years. Although Nilsen initially resented his stepfather, whom he viewed as an unfair disciplinarian, he gradually came to grudgingly respect him. The family moved to Stricken in 1955.
I mean, there you go. I mean, his grandfather probably, had him, loved him. Like he said, I think you've already quoted it, he was his protector, his hero, that's what he looked up to. This new Andrew Scott, this new stepfather, was probably, like he says, a disciplinarian. He probably came in, there was 3 kids there, they later went on to have 4 more kids,
That's hard work.
Yeah. And back in the day as well, money's tight, everything's tight. You've got to kind of all pull your weight and do things. Mum's out at work, dad's out at work.
Yeah. And it's
well, like he says, he grudgingly became to respect him. He probably realised that as he got older.
Yeah, that's it. As a kid, he's thinking, you can't replace my granddad.
Yeah, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my dad.
Exactly.
All that kind of stuff.
And they don't understand that this stepfather isn't doing it because he wants to take over all the control. It's because he's there because he's with his mum. He loves his mum, loves him as well. But he's realising as he's got older that that's the way he's meant it to be.
Yeah.
Right. So the next bit. What's the bottom of that page? Fucking wind everywhere.
So on the onset of puberty, Nilsen discovered he was gay. which initially confused him and shamed him. He kept his sexuality hidden from his friends and his family and his few friends, because many of the boys of whom he was attracted to had facial features similar to those of his sister Sylvia. Weird, yeah. On one occasion, he sexually fondled her, believing that his attraction towards boys might actually be a manifestation of the care he felt for her.
Wow.
Nilsen made no effort to seek sexual contact with any of his peers to whom he was sexually attracted, although later he said that he'd been fondled by an older youth and did not find the experience unpleasant. On one occasion, he also caressed and fondled the body of his older brother while he slept. As a result of this, Olav Jr. began to suspect his brother of being gay and regularly belittled him in public, referring to Dennis as hen, which, as we all know, is a Scottish dialect for a girl, your wee hen. Nilsen initially believed that the fondling of his sister may have been evidence that he was bisexual.
I mean, I don't really know how to really touch on that, because I can't really understand why you would have done that. I know confusion about your sexuality, fair enough, but your own sister.
Well, exactly, I know, but I think.
But am I gay or not? I'll just try and touch my sister.
I'll just try and touch my sister. I mean, yeah, she's not a bloke. I'll tell you what, I'll have a go on my sister.
Yeah, she's only.
See if that makes me feel. Yeah, see if it makes me feel not gay. I'm a bit bisexual. Although in real life, I do have, or I know of friends, or I have friends, or I know of people. I suppose that probably aren't friends, more Facebook friends.
You've got friends that touch their siblings.
No, I'm not. But those that are in relationships or married, that you look at them and think, wow, she looks like your sister, or you'll see younger videos of that person prior to the meeting, maybe the current partner, and you think the mannerisms and the way they hold themselves are so reflective of other family members that you know in that person's life. And sometimes I do wonder, do people have this weird? I don't know. I mean, I've personally not, but
I think what do they say? It was like an old school thing when they said that women tend to find
people like their dad
in their male partners.
James is nothing like my dad. People be I mean, I suppose he can fix anything if he just looks at it. Yeah, maybe, but like facial and mannerisms, absolutely not. My dad's a fucking trooper.
It's very, very strange. I don't really know how to kind of get around that.
No. I think again, a chap in that day and age, questioning his sexuality. Okay, I don't condone any abuse at all, but was it just that thing? Or she's a woman. Am I attracted to her? He probably was. As we've already touched on, he was very close to his grandfather. Probably the only person. Maybe the love or an actual just sibling affection that he felt for his sister. Was he getting that confused with? Sexuality and actually other kind of, the marriage, partner kind of love as opposed to sibling.
Yeah.
Did he not feel that affection? His brother tormented him. He doesn't sound like he was close to any of his family. Maybe the love and whatnot that he felt towards his sister, he just couldn't, realise what that was.
Yeah, and I think, because how old was he here when this happened?
So maybe
12
it just,
or something?
it doesn't really, there's no date given.
Yeah, he's still really young. So it says, was it 54, 55? And he's born 42.
Yeah, well, the stepfather came, they divorced in 48. The stepfather came along, sorry, just going back to some earlier notes. They moved to 1955. So what's that? He's 10. He's 10 at that point.
So he's still really young. And he's very, very confused.
Yeah.
And I suppose maybe in his head, he forced himself to do it, thinking that might help him realise sexually who he was.
Yeah.
Like we said before, she's just a female. Maybe that's what people do to figure out if they are gay or not.
Well, it's not what people do.
That's what I mean, but
in his head, yeah, absolutely.
So you can kind of understand it,
and just mixing up the feelings, the emotions, and what they mean, and.
Right, so as Nilsen progressed into adolescence, he found life in Stricken increasingly stifling, with limited entertainment amenities or career opportunities. He respected his parents' efforts to provide and care for their children, but began to resent the fact that his family were poorer than most of his peers, with his mother and stepfather making no effort to better their lifestyles. Thus, Nilsen seldom invited his friends to the family home. At the age of 14, he joined the Army Cadet Force, viewing the British Army as a potential avenue for escaping his rural origins. Right, so he don't want to be with his family anymore, so he's gone.
Yeah.
you want to go from the? This is where it kicks off, I think.
Into the murders.
The murders, the big massive title.
Yeah. Okay. So between 1978 and 1983, Nilsen is known to have killed a minimum of 12 men and boys, and have attempted to kill 7 others. He initially confessed in 1983 to having killed about 16 victims. The majority of Nilsen's victims were homeless or gay men. Others were heterosexual people he typically met in bars, on public transport, or on one occasion outside his own home. All of Nilsen's murders were committed inside the 2 North London addresses where he resided in the years he is known to have killed. His victims were lured to the addresses through guile, typically the offer of alcohol or shelter.
We know from the documentaries we've watched together he was a massive pisshead.
He was. Loved his rum and coke, which I am drinking
You're
at the
drinking
moment.
Okay, so inside Nilsen's home, the victims were usually given food and alcohol, then strangled, typically with a ligature, either to death or until they had become unconscious. If the victim had been strangled into unconsciousness, Nilsen then drowned him in his bathtub, in his sink, or a bucket of water before observing a ritual in which he bathed, clothed, and retained the bodies inside his residences for several weeks or occasionally months before he dismembered them.
Yeah, so I think, earlier on we've discussed this prior to recording, and as you say, we've watched the documentaries. From what I can gather, I mean, he only dismembered them as a way of disposing of them. The body started piling up.
Yeah, that wasn't like a thing for him.
No, and I don't think he took much pleasure in it. And I know in his early army career, he went into the catering side of it. And, when you watch things and you look at the documentaries around him, they say, that's where he gained the skills. I mean, I don't think he went in there to gain those skills for this reason.
Yeah.
I just think they came in handy.
Yeah.
And
it
was
was this
just
knife for the head.
Yeah, and I think again he probably, from what my opinion is, that I assume we're going to get to probably a little bit later on a few of the other murders. But I think he had to dispose of them to then be able to bring others back.
Yeah, because you can't have 4
dead bodies piled up in the corner under a sheet,
or bubbling away under the floorboards. Yeah. So each victim killed between 1978 and 1981 at his Cricklewood residence was disposed of via burning upon a bonfire, because this is where he lived. He had the bottom floor thing with the garden.
He had the garden, yeah.
Prior to their dissection, Nilsen removed their internal organs, which he disposed of either beside a fence behind his flat or close to Gladstone Park. The victims killed in 1982 and 1983 at his Muswell Hill residence were retained at his flat with their flesh and smaller bones flushed down the lavatory.
Block the drains he did with those.
Yeah. Nilsen admitted to engaging in masturbation as he viewed the nude bodies of several of his victims, and to have engaged in sexual acts with 6 of his victims' bodies, but was adamant that he'd never penetrated any of his victims. Oh, isn't that nice? It was like BTK. We covered him in some past episodes. And he's one of my, for lack of better words, he's one of my favourites, BTK, because he made a point after he killed multiple women. He'd say, "Oh, but I didn't rape them."
Oh yeah,
as though it's like,
well, that's all right. I didn't rape them though.
Yeah, I just
killed
murdered
them.
murdered them. Yeah,
boiled their heads, dissected, did whatever I did with them, but I didn't rape them.
Yeah, that's all right.
Penetrate.
Right, so the first, this is Melrose Avenue where he moved, because he moved to London after. So he spent years in the cadets, and then this is obviously when the murders happened. When he moved to London. So this is Melrose Avenue, and this is when he killed his first victim. Do you want to go from there, Steph?
Yeah, so Nilsen killed his first victim, 14-year-old Stephen Holmes, on the 30th of December 1978.
Happy New Year.
Holmes encountered Nilsen at the Cricklewood Arms pub, where Holmes had unsuccessfully attempted to purchase alcohol. According to Nilsen, he'd been drinking heavily alone on the day that he met Holmes, before deciding in the evening that he must, at all costs, leave his flat to seek company. Nilsen invited Holmes into the house with the promise of the two drinking alcohol and listening to music, believing him to be approximately 17 years old. At Nilsen's home, both him and Holmes drank heavily before they fell asleep. The following morning, Nilsen awoke to find the sleeping Holmes beside him on his bed. In his subsequent written confessions, Nilsen stated that he was afraid to wake him in case he left me. After caressing the sleeping youth, Nilsen decided Holmes was to stay with me over the new year whether he wanted to or not. Reaching for a necktie, Nilsen straddled Holmes as he strangled him into unconsciousness before drowning the teenager in a bucket filled with water. Nilsen then washed the body in the bathtub before placing Holmes on his bed and caressing his body. He twice masturbated over the body before awaiting the passing of rigor mortis to enable him to stow the corpse beneath the floorboards. Holmes bound the corpse remained beneath the floorboards for almost 8 months before Nilsen built a bonfire in the garden behind his flat and burned the body on the 11th of August 1979.
8 months.
8 months with that under your floorboards.
And like, I've thought, if he did that for, I don't know, a few weeks until he decided how to get rid of it, but for 8 months.
8 months. Well, it's like he says, you're staying with me whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I think he's done it from the whole traumatic shit that happened with his granddad. It's similar to Jeffrey Dahmer, where he was the same, where he didn't want people to leave because he was always abandoned, and he wasn't comfortable where he was. And when he settled somewhere and someone came over, he's like, well, you're not leaving, and the only way to do that was to kill him.
Yeah.
And they put him under the floorboards.
I mean, anybody normal would have just tried to start a relationship.
Yeah, just skipping over for a few more nights. Yeah, go on then.
Yeah, I'll cook your tea.
Yeah. So 8 months.
I mean,
and he would have had multiple other people over around that time, like that guy in the
well, as we know,
documentary
he's got his friend. Yeah, he had a friend.
He said
was
it
it
stank.
Martin? Yeah, absolutely. And they put it down to what, like mould and just
Yeah, because you wouldn't go over to your mate's house and go, you
got
must have a body under your fucking
Absolutely.
floorboard.
And like to me and you, probably wouldn't know what a body smelled like. If I walked in, I'd just be like, what a pungent smell there is in here,
like,
dirty bitch.
You know, taking your bins out.
I know, yeah. Wash your curtains.
There's a quote from him here that says, I eased him into his new bed beneath the floorboards. His new bed. A week later, I wondered whether his body had changed at all and had started to decompose. I disinterred him and pulled the dirt-stained youth up onto the floor. His skin was very dirty. I stripped myself naked and carried him into the bathroom and washed his body. So this is however long into having him under the floorboards, and he's
a week.
He's gone, oh, you need a bath. There were practically no discoloration, and his skin was pale white. His limbs were more relaxed than when I had put him down there. Right, okay.
Well, yeah.
So Nilsen's written recollections of the ritual he observed after the murder of his first victim.
Yeah, I mean, he's done his memoirs, hasn't he? It's all kind of been taken from that.
Reflecting on his killing spree in 1983, he said that having killed Holmes, I caused dreams which caused death. This is my crime. Adding that he had started down the avenue of death and possession of a new kind of flatmate. And I think with a lot of killers, they experiment with methods and stuff. So
until they find the one that works for them.
Yeah, and it's like, obviously it's sexual gratitude as well, isn't it? So he's done a certain thing and gone, well, I masturbated, that felt quite good, but what if I chop this off, or what if I bathe him, or what if I do this? Because they're always reaching for that ultimate pleasure, aren't they? So I think he's done that and gone, because he said, I wondered what he looked like.
Well, it's his first victim, wasn't it? So
yeah, and he's thinking, what do I do with it?
Does he look like my granddad, maybe?
Exactly, that's what I was going to say, is I saw my granddad, that's the only dead body I've seen before, and that stuck with me because he's my hero and he's gone. And then he's looked at this guy and then thought, oh, well, it's like he's caring for him after he's dead, and he's bathed him and stuff, which is completely pointless, isn't it, obviously? So that's why I think he's done it, is to care for this person as though he is still alive, but he can't leave. Yeah,
and I think you touched on it before about him, needing to be in control, and I think on some of the documentaries we've watched, states about, they ultimately always have to be in control. It's their way or the no way. And I think, washing them and keeping them with them, I don't know. Yes, okay, he needs to be in control, and I think, he's got that dominant side to him, but I really do think it's just a way of, he doesn't want to be left. He doesn't want to be on his own. He wants to feel loved, and, you can't love somebody you've just killed. But maybe he did. Maybe, in some sick, twisted way that he, well, let's see what he looks like. Let's clean him. Let's bathe him. You wouldn't do that if you had no remorse or no, his body was filthy. It says, and he wanted to wash him. You wouldn't do that if you didn't feel anything at all for these people.
Exactly, yeah. And this is the whole reason I do this podcast. It's because the bottom line is why. That's all there is to it, really. Like, for me to sit here and talk and reflect on it, and then sit there and go, well, why did he do it? And there are bits in his past that you can kind of understand in his head why he did things, but then it gets a bit worse. And now he's killed his first victim. He's done things.
He's got the taste for it now.
Exactly. And now we're on to not quite the second victim. Well, the second victim, but not the murder.
Yeah, he's got away, didn't he?
So do you want to tell us about that one?
Okay. So on the 11th of October 1979, Nilsen attempted the murder of a student from Hong Kong named Andrew Ho, whom he had met at St Martin's Lane pub and lured to his flat on the promise of sex. Nilsen attempted to strangle Ho, who managed to flee from his flat and reported the incident to the police. Nilsen was questioned in relation to the incident, but Ho decided not to press charges.
Right, so with that, there's other cases again, because I'll refer to other cases really, because a lot of them are similar. Oh, he's got his top off. Go on, son, get that tan in.
Get
you.
that tanning oil on.
With other... I'm all right, thanks, mate. I found with other cases, especially when they're gay, there was one guy, and I can't remember his name, but he was similar, where he murdered a few people. And there was one case where he chatted this guy up, and he said, I've got a van. Do you want to come and have a shag in the van? So they did. But he was really rough, strangle him and stuff. And this guy was in and out of consciousness, and then he panicked and said, get off me, and then he left. And this was maybe in the 90s or something, a long time ago, but it's fairly...
Long time, Tom. I was born in the 90s. I'm only 35.
I know, it's weird to say, isn't it? But even back then, obviously being gay, everyone's a bit, you know, and it's bottom of the pile.
I mean, whatever country, some countries this day and age, you can't be gay.
Yeah. And this guy tried to press charges against him, and the police didn't really say it because they couldn't, but they just thought, well, that's what gays do. They're all kinky and weird.
Absolutely, and I think that's why you know some of these attempted murders.
And this is 1979. Yeah. The police have gone.
It's just what you like. You're gay.
Yeah, you like this.
You like being
shit.
tied up.
Yeah, you don't like normal passionate sex.
You were just too pissed. Yeah.
So that's why he's probably gone. It's not even worth it.
Yeah, and I think again in one of the documentaries we've watched, you know, the police did push it off. They did push it off, and probably a few of the victims that you know, luckily didn't get killed, but he attempted to murder. Again, they were all kind of either gay, homeless. It's kind of, you've let him do that to you because he's given you accommodation. He's done this, he's done that.
Yeah, to the authorities, it's like the dregs of society, and it's not a priority to them. If it was a woman, a white, prominent, you know, good businesswoman who got someone attempted to rape her, that guy would be in prison.
You say that, Tom. Look at all these, you know, rapes that go on nowadays, or attacks on women. The fucking men don't get prosecuted for that.
I know, but I mean compared to...
Yeah, absolutely, compared to, like you say, a middle-class white female American or British woman, I suppose.
And it's like, you know, when you hear about, for instance, Madeleine McCann, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
That's still going on. It's one missing child.
Still in the newspaper. Was it last week or the week before? I went to the shop. She
was
on the front of the newspaper.
Yeah, right. And that happened, 2007? And can you imagine the amount of children that go missing in the world all the time?
Absolutely. And she's still... No disrespect. I mean, you know...
Yeah, nothing at all.
With all of the fairy tale where she came back, you know, but it's not going to happen.
But people, especially in larger countries, you know, they go missing all the time.
I mean... I think, every single day, children in every country go missing. I mean, not even children that go missing, but I'm going to go off piece now, but, you know, people in maybe third world countries, you know, as we're sat here now, young children are living in squalors and are getting raped.
Yeah.
You know, it's absolutely disgusting what goes on in the world.
Yeah, and I find that, like, similar to a guy called Samuel Little, who we also covered in past episodes, which Bill, who is in the most recent episode, death row expert we talked about before, he spoke to Sam Little, and he is considered the most prolific serial killer in American history, with over 60 victims, women, and he was black, right? And you think about serial killers, the first thing that pops in person...
I'm thinking a white middle-aged man. You tell me about
Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, right? Yeah. Samuel Little, I went to a true crime talk, and this was I remember it was just before lockdown, like the pandemic happened, so like March 2020. Or February, and this woman was talking, and we went to like the Shrewsbury Town football ground. There was a function room. There's about 200 people in there, and we got tickets. Someone bought me a ticket for my birthday. Went there, fascinating stuff. And she said at one point, she said, "Can anyone here name a black serial killer?" And I
Tom put his hand up.
Well, this is the thing. I thought, and I went to put my hand up, and there was ones I thought of, like the Washington snipers. It was two black dudes that went on a killing spree, but they're not serial killers, they're spree killers. So I was like, oh, no, that's wrong. Couldn't think of one. And she said, has anyone heard of Samuel Little? And his face popped up on the screen, and no one. Everyone's looking around. Me and my friends were going, I don't know who that is.
I'll tell you why it is. The black guys, they get caught, one pop, one kill, done. They don't get a chance to be serial killers.
And this is the thing, right? This was in maybe the 60s he started, right? 20 plus years, maybe longer, that he got away with it, because I think...
So everyone was looking for a white man.
Yeah, exactly. And his victims were also mainly, if I'm correct, or were black prostitutes.
I was just about to say, I bet his victims were black.
Yep. And it got to the point where, cause Samuel Little was very arrogant, and he died a few years ago, and even up until when he died, when he was old, he was still a piece of shit, really. The way he spoke about these women were disgusting. And he said that a few victims in, one lady he killed because he would try and bury them, and he said he was digging this hole, and then he stopped and he thought to himself, well, I ain't gonna get caught, so there's no point fucking
fucking leave it side of the road.
So he made a ditch basically for this lady, and didn't get caught for years and years and years and years and years. So it's, our point was, with the homosexuality and with
him getting away with it, even
with
after being reported.
Andrew Ho, he's gone, well, there's no point. It's 1979. No one likes us, no one accepts us. There's no point. So 2 months after the attempted murder of Andrew Ho, on the 3rd of December 1979, Nilsen encountered a 23-year-old Canadian student named Kenneth Ockenden, who had been on a tour of England visiting relatives. Upon learning the young man was a tourist, Nilsen offered to show Ockenden several London landmarks. So he's a predator, and he's thinking, because where did he meet him? In a pub. So that's the first thing they've got in common. His drink, yeah. So they could get a bit pissed up, and he could say, well, yeah, we got to know each other. Do you want to come back to mine? He's, I've got him. So
and I know I keep saying back in the day, because it was, but I suppose drink was cheap then, but I suppose money was also hard then. People couldn't afford to come back to mine.
I've got loads of booze sorted.
So Nilsen then invited the student to his house on the promise of a meal and further drinks. The pair stopped at an off licence en route to Nilsen's residence and purchased whiskey, rum and beer. Sounds like a good night.
Yeah, I'd go.
Other than the death that happened at the end.
Party at Dennis' house.
With Ockenden insisting on sharing the bill. Nilsen was adamant he could not recall the precise moment he strangled Ockenden, but recalled that he strangled the young man with the cord of Nilsen's headphones as Ockenden listened to music. He also recalled dragging Ockenden across his floor with the wire wrapped around his neck that he strangled him with, before pouring himself a glass of rum and continuing to listen to the music on the headphones which he'd just strangled Ockenden with. So that, again, that's what I was saying to you before. This poor chap sat there, a couple of drinks in, listening to music on Dennis's headphones, and bam, come from behind, strangled him while the cord's still wrapped around his neck, drags him along the road, and then just takes the headphones out of his ears and starts listening. And
I was thinking before, because he's a massive alcoholic, being drunk, your inhibitions go, don't they? So if he was sober, he probably would have gone, how do I do this? I might not go through with it tonight. I might try another night. But because he's pissed, he's probably gone, I'll just do it now, fuck it. Not plan ahead. So alcohol comes into it a lot. If you're really, someone says if you're real hammered and someone goes, jump over that fence, you just go, fuck it, I'll do it.
If I fall through it, I fall through it.
And I know it's not exactly the same as a murder, but in his head, he's thinking, I'll just sort it out. I've done it before.
Just sees the opportunity there, and he's probably looking at him like I am now, you with them headphones in, and thinking,
that's my chance.
Get that wire wrapped around his head. He's probably fantasised about it within a split second of doing it, and bam, took his opportunity.
Exactly, and he's very, very drunk.
Yeah.
The following day, Nilsen purchased a Polaroid camera and photographed his body in various suggestive positions. He then laid Ockenden's corpse spread-eagled above him on his bed as he watched television for several hours before wrapping the body in plastic bags and stowing the corpse beneath the floorboards. Did he get rid of the one before?
No, I think the poor chap still. Oh no, did he not burn him? Is he still under his floor after he bathed him? He put him back under the floorboards.
I think he did. Yeah, I think he might have done. Yeah. On approximately 4 occasions over the following fortnight, Nilsen disinterred Ockenden's body from beneath the floorboards and seated the body upon his armchair alongside him as he himself watched television and drank alcohol. Again, booze.
But again, that just hits back. It's the companionship, like you said with the first teenager on the day before New Year's Eve. You're staying with him for New Year, whether you like it or not. He's never known a father figure. He loved his granddad, who then died suddenly, according to his memoirs, when he was 6 years old. I think he wanted to keep these victims with him. I'm not
at
saying
whatever cost.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, on one of the documentaries, he'd leave him in the armchair, go out to work, come back. Obviously, they're still sat there; they've not moved because they're dead. But come back in and start telling him about his day at work.
Yeah.
You know, it was almost like a companionship for him as well. And the control, again, I know before I said I don't think it's because he wanted control. Obviously, he did want the control. He's a serial killer. He wants them to stay, and his way of keeping them there is to kill them. And I think that's the thing. He just part of him didn't want to be alone, and he did want that companion.
And again, it goes back to the granddad. So he probably when he spoke to, was watching his granddad lying there. He's probably spoken to him, said, "I miss you," or whatever, blah 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 blah. And it's similar to what he's doing in later things. He sat with them, told them about his day, and again, he was considered a very, very weird man. So I don't think he had many actual friends that he would hang out with.
No,
and that was his only option in his head. And he's, again, with the granddad thing, he sat there and chatted to him because he knows they're never going to leave.
Well, the thing is, like, I mean, you know, we send children to nursery, we get them in social circles that allow them to build those social abilities. You know, children have friends, this, that, the other, they know people they like, people they don't. It doesn't sound to me like in his younger life he didn't build these social abilities like we all have now. He didn't make friends easily. He was, ostracized. Probably not ostracized, but he was pushed aside, according to him, by his mum, his stepdad, his brothers, his sisters. So the only way he probably knew to be social or have that, he probably thought, okay, they'll come and drink with me, but I know at a certain point in the night they're going to leave. They're going to go. Sorry.
And that's the whole, in his head, that's the ultimate thing. When they leave, he has to kill them. And where am I going with this?
I know, I was thinking that. I had a point before I started yabbing, you know. No, but I think, let's make friends by something we have in common, which, as we know, is drinking. He meets a lot of them in pubs. He invites them back with drink. I'll make friends and I'll lure you back to my house. And, you know, who's to say that every time he lured somebody back to his house, I'm sure he's had potential victims there, maybe, that he didn't even kill. I mean, I know in one of the things that I watched, he'd said, you know, it was maybe 15 or 16. But if you hadn't have caught me, it could have been 100, 150.
Yeah.
You know, once you get that, and who knows why? You know why that is. You know, you think again, Ted Bundy. You know, all these other serial killers, they stop because of court. You know, ultimately they stop because of court. I don't think I've ever, and you know, you do this. It's your profession, not mine. But so correct me if I'm wrong. But is there ever been anybody that's been like, do you know what? I've done 10 now. I've done 5. I've done 9. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to live a normal life, because how does that urge ever go away?
I think the only person, again, because BTK, I like still today looking into him. Again, Bill still speaks to BTK. He's a very weird man, apparently. And what he did was, over decades of killing women, he did stop for a long time. And because he was in the papers and everyone knew about him and they're trying to catch him, when he stopped, they thought, why?
Wonder if he's died.
Yeah, they either thought he was dead, or maybe he's in prison for something else, or he got old, so he couldn't
carry
do
on.
it. And I think it was partly to do because of the fact it was more work for him as he got older. To you know, fight and struggle with someone and strangle him and do this and do that. It's hard work for a 60s whatever old man that he was.
I wonder if there's ever, again, going off piece a little bit now, but I wonder if there's ever anybody out there that does do it. They don't get caught, then they stop, and then somebody else starts doing it. You know, they hear about somebody in the news or from a different country, and they think, "Fuck that! I'm coming back out. Like, you're getting all the limelight here."
This is the thing with BTK. After a long time, maybe I think it was like 2005-ish or something, where he popped back into the spotlight.
He did another murder.
Well, no, he didn't. What happened was, I think he was getting bored, like getting tired of not being the centre of attention. So he would send letters and stuff to the press or the police and say, like, haha, you haven't caught me, type thing.
Right, okay.
Like, just
got himself back into the media.
Yeah, without killing anyone.
Yeah.
And he loved, again, it's the control, because he's in control because he hasn't been caught. And he can say whatever he wants.
Again, sorry, a bit...
how we got caught, this is a great story. And me and Bill had a bit of a laugh about this because it was such a stupid thing that he did. So in about 2005-ish or whatever, remember floppy disks were a thing?
Oh, God, yeah. And I tell you what...
They weren't even floppy.
No, they weren't floppy, so why they called that? A hard disk, it should be called. However, now working in...
An erect disc.
He had a floppy disk.
Yeah, he had a floppy disk. When he was taunting the police and stuff in the public saying, you haven't caught me, he sent a letter to the police and asked them, if I send you a floppy disk of, like, evidence and stuff, will you be able to catch me via the floppy disk? The police aren't going to say, yeah. we're going to catch you.
Of course not. Well, why don't you just try? We'll see.
And that's what he did.
Cat and mouse.
He fell for it.
Yeah.
He just went, all right, and they got a floppy disk in the post, I'm assuming. They got it all read, got the evidence. And what happened was, because when he was a member of a church, he was, again, an upstanding citizen, this older man. You would never suspect him.
Talk to me about people in church, son. Go on, sorry.
When he sent the floppy disk in, when they were reading it, got the info, because you can find somehow in the code or the file or whatever it is where it came from. So they found where.
I mean, they can do that with paper. You know, as well. Like
exactly.
They know where it's been printed, what shop there's been. Yeah.
But this guy thought, oh, this cool new technology, they can't catch me via this. What a moron. And they found the church, like, you know, the I don't know what the signature at the bottom, or whatever, and it's from so and so church. They just went to the church.
Yeah, the equivalent of our IP addresses nowadays.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And that's how they caught him. And he went off radar, didn't do anything for maybe 10, 15 years.
Could have got away with it, you daft cunt.
Exactly, and this is the thing. So
like you say, they need to be in the limelight, don't they? They need that attention. That's
it. That's what we were talking about before.
Yeah,
the control.
Right, victim 3 now. I think we're on.
Yeah.
Going back though, you touched on before he bought Nilsen. Going back to the story we're actually on, he bought that Polaroid camera. I know, again, on some documentaries. I don't know if we're going to touch on it in this. When he was in the army, one of his passions did seem to be photography,
right.
and how he would ask, comrades, his mates around him, to pose, to pretend to be dead. And take pictures of them.
I remember this now.
They thought it was weird at the time, but again, everyone's in the army, a bit of PTSD. They probably all have a bit. No, this isn't to say that people in the army are all a bit weird. I don't mean that, but they all probably suffer in some way from some kind of PTSD and trauma. And I know he was in the catering side of it for a long time, but they probably didn't think it was as bad as it was until the stories come out and think, fucking hell, no wonder he got me to lie down looking like I was dead and my throat slit.
Again, it comes down to the with the bodies under the floorboards and your mate's house stink, you're not going to automatically assume he's a serial killer.
Absolutely.
And with the photography, if someone says, right now, Steph, can you pose in, like, a bodybuilder stance, you wouldn't go, that's a bit...
I'd go get to folk abuse in my body.
But you know what I mean? Like, you go, well, he's into photography, it's arty and whatever, I'll do it. Because that's his hobby and you're my friend or whatever.
Yeah.
And they probably thought the same.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just pretend you're dead because I've got a fascination with this and this is a bit dark, but they're not going to go, well, he's going to go on to kill loads of people.
That's fucking a bit fucking morbid, isn't it?
Yeah. So,
okay. Third victim then, Martin Duffy, bless him. Okay. So, Nilsen killed his third victim, 16-year-old Martin Duffy, on the 17th of May, 1980. Duffy was a catering student from Birkenhead, Merseyside. Birkenhead.
You can't even do it.
I can't. No, I'm not good at Scouse. The only time I can do Scouse is if I'm swearing. You fucking what? I have to fucking swear to be a fucking Scouse.
Chicken in a can of Coke.
Hey, I can do a good Scottish. That wasn't good. Anyway, who had hitched up? Start again. Nilsen killed his third victim, 16-year-old Martin Duffy, on the 17th of May 1980. Duffy was a catering student from Birkenhead, Merseyside, who had hitchhiked to London without his parents' knowledge on the 13th of May after being questioned by the British Transport Police for evading his train fare. For 4 days, Duffy had slept rough near Euston railway station before Nilsen encountered the youth as he returned from a union conference in Southport. Again, look, very upstanding citizen. He'd been to a union conference in Southport. So Duffy, Nilsen recollected, was both exhausted and hungry, and happily accepted Nilsen's offer for a meal and a bed for the evening. After the youth had fallen asleep in Nilsen's bed, Nilsen fashioned a ligature around his neck and then simultaneously sat on Duffy's chest and tightened the ligature with a great force. Nilsen held his grip until Duffy became unconscious. He then dragged the youth into his kitchen and drowned him in the sink before bathing the body, which he recollected...
Bathing with the body?
Bathing with the body. Ooh,
so he's upped his game now.
But yeah, he has. He's getting in the water now, which he recollected. I hope that weren't in the fucking sink, though. How big's this sink?
Like a baby having a sinking bath.
I love that. We've all got those baby pictures. Which he recollected as being the youngest looking I've ever seen. Now, bearing in mind, Duffy was 16 and his first victim was only 14, which he believed at the time to be older. He said he thought he was 17.
I'm thinking he knows now that, one, they're homeless and hungry and whatever, and they're very young, and he's this older kind of all right, nice man, and he's got a place to stay. And back then,
love, come back to mine. Let me get you a drink. Let's have a hot bath.
And you think
dead together.
He's disappeared from his home in Birkenhead to London without his parents' knowledge.
London was the place to be back then, though.
Exactly,
I mean, it's not much different now. But...
Yeah, they've all flocked there.
Yeah.
But this Martin Duffy's obviously thought to himself, well, someone's going to help. Like, I'll get on my feet at some point.
Yeah.
And Dennis Nilsen comes along. And it could have been anyone, but obviously, unluckily, this happened.
Slightly older man.
But, and, you know, if that was you, 16, you got nowhere to go, and someone offers you, you're probably going to do it, aren't you?
Yeah.
So bless him.
It's the naivety, I suppose, as well, isn't it? But one thing I was going to say, like, you know, he strangled him. You know, he rest in peace. But he's then taken him to the sink to drown him. That must be somewhere. I mean, I know he's only a 16-year-old lad. He's homeless. He's probably not got much meat on him. But you know, we hear how he tries to drown people. Well, he does. He drowns people in buckets and whatnot. So these are shallow. These are what I'm trying to get at before when I joked about, you know, getting in the bath with him and whatnot. These are shallow sinks, shallow buckets that he's, you know, putting these dead heads into, or semi-dead, because, you know, he's strangled them with ligatures and he, you know, ties, whatever he's using, neckerchiefs, and then putting them in the bucket. That in itself, you know, there must be water everywhere. How big are these buckets? How deep and big are these? Yeah, absolutely.
It's not like he's pushed him into a pool.
No, and even the bath, you know, he's not at this point. You're not taking him over to the bath. We're talking sinks and buckets. So these are only small holes.
In his small flat.
Yeah.
And I thought, just thinking about it now, that might come down to his They used to go to the harbour and there was sea. And his granddad he had a heart attack when he was fishing or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think his health declined, but yeah, he died out at sea. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Dennis himself nearly drowned.
Yeah,
he was thinking about his granddad at the time that he was going to save him.
Yeah, he used to simulate being drowning.
Yeah, so he's got a fascination with that as well, because I think it stems back again to his granddad.
Yeah.
It's water and his granddad dead body, and it get like Jeffrey Dahmer in comparison. He would kill for company. And he was highly sexual.
Well, with Jeffrey though, he you know, at least a couple of days in, you know, he'd keep him there, he'd drug him, he'd give him drinks, he'd actually allow him to have a little bit of a good time.
Yeah.
Dennis is like, get to fuck, you know, having one night, that's it, lad.
Yeah. Otherwise you've got to pay rent.
Yeah.
But I think
I wonder. Sorry, I'm putting in now. I wonder. I know Martin, his friend. I don't think there's much context in here about a friend, but we know he had a long-standing friend called Martin who would go around and visit his flat and whatnot. And I know that there has been where Martin said, on one occasion I woke up and the gas fire, I went to, you know, Dennis was asleep already, I went to sleep, the gas fire certainly wasn't on, it was a summer's evening, and woke up, the gas fire's on, the room's covered in smoke, and, you know, he's got an apple knife in his hand, and I wondered what the hell was going on. But I wonder what put Martin aside from all the rest. I wonder why he allowed Martin. You know, he befriended Martin. He got a friend out of Martin. They would often visit. They'd often have drinks together. They'd have, you know, I think.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Maybe it might come down to partly he might not have been sexually attracted to him, but also why would you just have one friend and kill and not have any other friends?
Yeah, you have the opportunity to make new friends, especially this especially Duffy. He's a homeless guy. He's moved to London. You know, his parents don't know he's only 16. He could have probably allowed him to almost be a flatmate.
Yeah, exactly.
In this day and age now, we'd be charging you for sofa.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah. Again, Jeffrey Dahmer. There was one man he killed, who I think he'd said in interviews that he actually did think he was in love with him, right? And for me, it's people have said, like, because he realised if he didn't kill him, he probably would have stuck around. But he killed him, I think, just in case. He was scared, completely scared of abandonment. So, I don't know if...
This calls for a short musical requiem in memory of Jeffrey Dahmer. Nobody understood him in the world. None of the experts, and certainly none of the so-called criminal psychologists. Like most people, he was no different in the fact that we all die alone.